This week's announcement that the International Criminal Court had issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Defense Minister Gallant brought renewed calls from Republicans in Congress to impose sanctions on the court. This is what House Speaker Mike Johnson had to say earlier today.
America should punish the ICC and put Karim Khan back in his place. And if the ICC is allowed to threaten Israel's leaders, we know that America will be next. There is a reason that we've never endorsed the International Criminal Court, because it is a direct affront to our own sovereignty.
Though President Biden expressed criticism of the ICC's actions, his administration had previously reversed Trump-era sanctions against the ICC if the court targeted the United States or Israel. Now, what form could these sanctions take? Joining me now to discuss this by phone, Congressman Glenn Grothman. He serves on the House Committee on Education Workforce, the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, as well as the House Budget Committee. He represents the 6th Congressional District of Wisconsin. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Well, glad to be on the show as always, and we'll begin to talk a little bit about one more example why you should never, ever want the United States to be part of these big international agencies.
It doesn't work out for our republic or for our friends, democratic governments like Israel. So there is a growing furor on Capitol Hill regarding this and a recognition that the U.S. should place sanctions on the ICC. What form might those sanctions take?
Well, I think somehow, I think that's being discussed, but we've got to do something to make sure that this organization doesn't feel in the future they can crack down, quite frankly, on anybody, anywhere, for any reason whatsoever. I mean, you couldn't have a country more innocent of doing anything wrong than Israel in this, right? You've got a country that's attacked, over 1,000 of its citizens are killed, and what they do is they say that we have to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu, in essence, if he leaves Israel and goes almost anywhere in the world other than the U.S. or Israel.
So this, I mean, they issued arrest warrants for Hamas officials as well. But, of course, Hamas is a terrorist organization that attacked Israel, as you pointed out, on October the 7th. So this appears like it's more politically driven in terms of their overall agenda, as I just had a member of the Knesset on the program earlier, Ohad Tal, talking about the rising sense of anti-Semitism that has led to, we had 3 countries, European countries today, recognize a Palestinian state. Can Israel get a fair shake in these international courts?
Of course not. Of course not. Because it represents the West. And they hate the West, just as the United States, if they give a chance, is never going to get a fair shake on this stuff, right?
So we know, Congressman Grothman, we know that the ICC has no authority over the United States, over Israel. They don't recognize them. But what are the real dangers here?
Well, the danger is they could eventually try to arrest someone when they're in some other country. They certainly have sent the message to the world and sent the message to the Arab world that Benjamin Netanyahu should be an outlier and should become a pariah. They have pounded it in to everybody around the world that Israel is morally repugnant. And believe it or not, morally repugnant at a time when just a few months ago, 1,000 of its citizens were killed. So, it's kind of hard to believe, isn't it?
It is, when they're simply defending themselves and still trying to get back their citizens that were taken hostage on October the 7th. Do you see this as fanning the flames of the anti-Semitism that we've seen around the globe?
Well, you got to wonder, what is the motive for singling him out? It could be one of 2 motives. It could be pure rank anti-Semitism. That's possible. It could be pure anti-Westernism, right? You have a country that's hated because it's adjacent to Gaza, really, and they are a successful, honestly run nation. And let's face it, most of the members of the ICC, just as most of the members of the United Nations, are morally bankrupt, crooked countries, right? And that, even though it's not a country, that fills the bill with Gaza, right? You've got a country that is completely corrupt. They take money that the Europeans and other people send to them, and the leadership runs off and lives lavish lifestyle in Turkey, lavish lifestyle in Qatar, right? And Israel is just wildly successful. I've been to Israel. You look at the countries around Israel, and they are poor basket cases, as most corrupt nations are.
Right.
And Israel is successful. Not to mention, Israel is based on a religion, right, founded to protect Jews. And I think around the globe you have a growing number of, what else to call them, anti-God countries that probably is offended by Israel's.
I think that's the right way to put it.
Well.
I think that's what's at the heart of anti-Semitism is the same thing we see many of these same places attack Christians as well. It is a hostility toward God. Very quickly, Congressman Grothman, when might we see Congress take action, at least in the House, against the ICC?
Well, that'll be up to Mike Johnson. My guess would be, we're going to be out of Washington next week, but my guess would be in 2 weeks, I would be disappointed if Mike Johnson doesn't have something put together for the floor by that time. And one more time, just as with the United Nations, it's kind of left to the United States to provide some moral guidance for the rest of the world.
Right.
And, you have so many, I'm looking at the other countries, members of the ICC, countries like, sadly, Canada, but also a lot of military dictatorships, corrupt dictatorships.
Right.
Who are on board here, and they should be standing up to this, but they're not standing up to it.
Right. Congressman Grothman, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Right, and I do want to point out, it should be an object lesson for your listeners.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about the ICC, whether you're talking about the WHO, whether you're talking about the United Nations, these big international organizations,
they're all bad.
Are big-time trouble.
We got to leave it there.
Right.
Folks, don't go away. We're back with more after the break.